It's just great to be with you again, even though I certainly saw many of you this summer. It's just wonderful to have another Ingathering Sunday. I think about the words of that hymn, tranquil streams that meet and merge and join as one to meet the sea. We gather again after that happy scatteredness of the summer. Some stayed here, and the children sharing water from the sink and the local pond in the backyard. Some went away and came back. And in our water communion, we gather the waters. I want you to know that we gather these waters and then we purify them. I boil them up. And we use that water in the blessing of baby ceremonies and in commissioning people who are going forth to do the ministry in the world. And I bring some of that water sometimes to anoint people who are dying. So this becomes our holy water that we all contribute together. And what I always do is add in some of the water from the previous year, so it becomes a kind of an ongoing holy water that is gathered from the community, past and current. This is our place for deep listening and reflecting that strengthens our souls so we can live our lives in a more whole and mindful way, more fully alive to the reality of what life is, helping each other face reality and cope with it, and opening ourselves to the beauty, love, and holiness that is beyond all of us and also within each of us. A popular nickname for that great love and holiness is God. You may call it what you like, or nothing at all, or perhaps just life. Life is certainly bigger than all of us, and yet within each of us. And there are times when we stand in the midst of it, beholding it and experiencing it, and it just knocks us over with its enormity. Karen told that story earlier of experiencing a sense of enormity and sacred space at the Painted Desert in Wyoming, feeling a sense of that God beauty and power that is beyond and yet within. Now, this isn't unusual to have an experience of the sacred in a place of extraordinary physical beauty, the mountains, the ocean at sunset. I loved Karen's story because she went from having that individual experience of the sacred to that tension of having other human beings show up on that same spot. Well, what's going to happen next? Will they ruin it? Will they appreciate it? Will they see what I see? Are they going to jump out of their camper, make a bunch of noise, throw around some trash, take a few selfies and leave? Will they prove to even be dangerous some way to me personally or to this space that I now treasure? We live constantly in this tension between individualism and community in our lives. There are very few spaces we can find or discover that haven't already been discovered and loved by someone that came before us. There are very few times any human being can exclaim, "This is sacred space. I feel it," and not almost immediately create a conflict with another human being over that claim. Who does it belong to? Who gets to say to what God it's sacred to, or what we should do about it, or what monuments or shrines we should put there? There's a story from thousands of years ago about a man named Moses, whose people, although he didn't know they were his people at the time, were enslaved by the Egyptians. Well, one day Moses was walking along in the desert, and he felt the nature of reality shift beneath his feet, and he saw a bush burning in the desert. Well, not so strange, but wait, something bizarre. The bush was burning, but it was not being consumed by the fire. That doesn't happen. And then a voice spoke, and it was the voice of God, so tradition tells us, starting a relationship with Moses and with Moses' people. We call this a theophany, when God is revealed through a visible manifestation to humankind. Moses then had the burden of taking this revelation to his community. He had stood on holy ground and spoken to God. And this is how it is with most of us. When we experience sacred space, when we feel the presence of God's grandeur or holiness in a space, it feels almost like a burden to bear that glory all by ourselves. So we feel it, the power of the Spirit that we feel in that place begs to be shared. In Mexico, in 1531, a little Nahuatl boy named Juan Diego experienced a series of apparitions of the Virgin Mary, a beautiful lady, a theophany. He had a very hard time persuading his local bishop that the vision was real, was authentic. And like Moses, the little boy protested to this God being he encountered, "I'm not worthy to receive this important message. I am just a nobody. I'm not important enough to receive this theophany." But just like had happened to Moses, Juan Diego was reassured, this time by La Virgen, that he was exactly what she wanted, who she wanted to work through. And that's another truth about sacred spaces and how the holy can break through to us in them. It can happen to anyone, you and me, a child. Almost 500 years after his apparition appeared to him, that place where Juan Diego saw the Virgin became and is a sacred place of pilgrimage for millions of people who go there to stand where that little boy stood and who try to feel some semblance there of what he may have felt. I stood in that line in Mexico City to see the Grotto of the Virgin for hours, to see where Juan Diego had his theophany, not because I worship the Virgin of Guadalupe, but because I love these stories so much. These stories about sacred places and the inbreaking of the realm of the holy into our own realm of the ordinary. I will go anywhere to be part of that story, to soak up the energy from those spaces. They remind me to see the world through the eyes of Moses or Juan Diego, to be open to the inbreaking of the sacred. But as it did for Moses and Juan Diego and their communities, the sacred changes us. I hope you know that. The presence of the holy, that deep soul of the world that touches us, does not leave us the same way it found us. When we awaken to the sacred in our midst, we become aware in a new way of the world's preciousness, of its ensouledness, and we want to do something about that. The Green Sanctuary Ministry team of this church is going to be focusing on the ocean this year, on protecting our oceans. Where's Tony? She's the chair of the Green Sanctuary Ministry team. There she is. We are ocean people. We live by the ocean, and many of us may experience the beach and the ocean as sacred space. I know for me, swimming in the ocean this summer, I always felt the enormity of creation, its awesome power, its sacramental quality. I can care about the ocean without swimming in it, of course, but there is something about that direct experience of its transcendence, of that healing, salty energy, that amazing, the tides and the wildness of it, that makes the issue of protecting the ocean and loving it more urgent, more personal, and more spiritual than if I just read some articles about, how we're overfishing and trashing our oceans and dumping garbage into it and all of those stories that aren't personal until you experience the ocean as having her own soul. Sacred space changes us when we encounter it. We feel awe and reverence, and we gain perspective on our own smallness. We may feel a sense of our own mortality versus infinity. When we stand on holy ground, it is demanding ground. I think we met on holy ground, many of us, this summer in some sacred spaces, like here in this sanctuary. in front of Lynn City Hall to rally to support our city's schools and our immigrant communities that had come under attack. We met on sacred space at the North Shore Pride in Salem in June, where we marched and set up a table to welcome and extend hospitality and friendship to our gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender friends and their families in the extended North Shore community. We dwelt together on the common ground of shared sorrow over violence here at home. I'm thinking particularly of Ferguson, Missouri, and abroad, Syria, Iraq, where we are sending yet more troops in, Gaza, a devastating situation there. Common ground on which we met to grieve and pray, and again to cope with life as it is, while strengthening each other to create the world as we would rather have it be, which is the work of the church, which is our mission. Common ground is sacred space. It is holy because it is a place where we feel the possibility that love can flourish, that we can bring blessing out of pain. We can move beyond fear and divisiveness into something we call beloved community. And so from all the many sacred places we have been and experienced when we were apart, we come together to dwell again in this sacred space, our sanctuary, where we meet on the common ground of common cause. Here in the coming year, we will worship and sing and lift our hearts in prayer for ourselves and for others. We will cultivate reverence and peace and a sense of service and push back against hopelessness, cynicism, and fear. We will tell stories that encourage and illuminate the human spirit. We will awaken to the world's sacred nature, to its ensouledness. And we will get clearer week after week here together about who we are and what we are trying to become, and strengthen ourselves for that journey, for the work of our lives. This little jar of water is a little bit of a wave that I caught last week in Preston Beach. I don't usually go there. I usually swim in Lynn or Nahant. But this bit of water that I will contribute to our water communion represents my reverence for the ocean and my gratitude for being able to live so close to her. And so now I invite you to come up with your little vessels of water to mingle in our communal bowl here, and to share just a brief word about where it comes from and why it is sacred to you.
This water also represents the water from the lake in Transylvania where I caught my first fish.
This comes from the sky and from our family.
Nahant Day had us well covered this summer we would go and take a nice end-to-end walk along down on the beach and then go hit Phillips Beach to bask and socialize and bonfires there at night. Take another summer like this.
This water is partly from Bedford, Mass, where I'm now working at the UUPCC as the administrator there, and partly from Lexington, where my son is working now as the administrator of the First Parish Church.
This water is from last night's rain and also from the tap in the basement where Alyssa and I spent about 45 minutes waiting out the tornado watch in our area.
This water comes from Mosquito Harbor in Midcoast, Maine. A place that's been very important to Trudy and me, and I would say that we're on the 4th generation of people that are swimming in that water and hope to add a few more generations to come.
This water represents a waterfall that we visited outside of Quebec City.
This water represents the University of the South in Swanee, Tennessee, where I left my daughter about 2 weeks ago, and I'm happy to say she's happy.
This water is from the pond in our backyard where we gathered for a wonderful family reunion this summer.
So this water is from the different lakes and bays where I did different triathlons this summer. I have to admit, I always swallow an awful lot to take it with me too.
This water represents our new find, Break Heart Reservation.
This water is from the little town of Fancy Gap, Virginia, the Blue Ridge Parkway, beautiful area where I spend a week with my family this summer.
This water is from the ocean, where my grandchildren discovered it for the first time when they came in to visit from Denver. It's also from Salem Hospital, where Linda is recovering.
This water represents a water fire in Providence, Rhode Island. If anyone is familiar, they light beautiful bonfires on the river. As Misha and I were standing there, a gentleman, after the fires were lit, said, "Is that it? That's all?" And I thought that was odd. But then the next comment out of his mouth was, "I just lost my wife." So may his pain wash away and feel the kind of love that Misha and I feel when we're together.
This water represents Lynn water, best water I ever had.
This water represents Spectacle Pond in New Hampshire, which is, we swim there every day in the summer. It's where we sold our house someplace. It's a sacred place for women.
This water is from Storyland. My grandchildren could not believe that I had never been to Storyland. And so this year was the year that they brought me to Storyland.
This water is from Lynn Woods, a sanctuary in every season.
This water represents ocean water 10 miles straight out from here on our way to Situate this summer. I'd like to say that Sarah and I have been on water for many years. I started from the Pacific in World War II, and ocean is something that we need to respect and we need to protect it.
Well, in celebration of oceans, which is our theme, as Vicky's pointed out, the Marine Sanctuary Ministry team's theme this year, this is water from Cutty Hunk, Massachusetts, which is off New Bedford, where I've been taking Dave since he was about this big, and also from Eggemogan Beach in Maine, where we built our second boat at the Wooden Boat School this summer.
This water represents the water that was encountered by Dean, Mary, Peter, and Charlie, and myself on our pilgrimage last month to Transylvania, arguably the heart, soul, and birthplace of Unitarian thinking.
This water represents the confluence of the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio rivers, which, as you might know, is Pittsburgh, where we left our son for college this year.
This water represents Swampscott Harbor. Our daughter was actually out in the storm last night on a boat, and we are very grateful that she was alive today. And this represents coming back from the edge.
This water is from one of the most beautiful places on earth, Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire.
This water is from the Mass Audubon Sanctuary in Wellfleet on a cave, which has been a sacred space to me for 40 some odd years.
This water represents Melrose Wakefield Hospital, where they do really good work.
Members of the board who are going to be giving a blessing, I'd like to invite you up now.
Just kind of do the best you can with the mics here. Matt, patch it up a mic.
The waters are tranquil when we affirm the interconnectedness of people everywhere.
When we express our commitment to this community and to the earth in ways that call forth beauty and generate strength.
And when we minister to each other with compassion.
May our waters be peaceful and our sailing smooth.
The waters rush when we embrace our imagination and our creativity, our power to unveil our old ways of thinking and to create new ones.
May we ride the waves with a sense of joy, freedom, and fun.
The waters shine when we use our powers wisely and for the good, when we question and doubt.
When we challenge ourselves to understand ourselves and the world around us.
May our waters sparkle, inspire, and illuminate.
And when the waters storm, may we find safe harbor in the covenant of compassion, fellowship, and forgiveness by which we live and walk together.
We consecrate our energy and loyalty to signify that we place ourselves, hearts, minds, and hands at the service of something larger than ourselves.
May we be held and nourished in community through every condition, journeying together from shore to shore, held as one people in the great element of love. So may it be.